My sister and I share this two-story house, a place built with two separate kitchens, almost like two homes stacked on top of each other. She claimed the downstairs, leaving me to the upper floor. I'm 30 now, and often, I'm the only one here. My sister's rarely home. She prefers to stay 20 miles away with her boyfriend, which means her part of the house remains empty, silent. It's foolish, but sometimes being alone in this house truly unnerves me. One evening, I was by myself, engrossed in a chilling film in my living room. My upstairs area is an open concept, meaning the living room, dining room, and kitchen are all one expansive space. My sofa sits right in the middle, leaving a vast, dark expanse behind me as I watch television. For anyone easily startled, it's hardly the ideal spot to be alone, watching something terrifying. I confess, in that dim room, with only the screen's glow battling the encroaching shadows, I found my gaze darting over my shoulder constantly. I hope I'm not the only 30-year-old man who does that. After the credits rolled, I went through my usual routine. Teeth brushed, every light extinguished, then off to bed. My slumber lasted barely 2 hours. Around 1 a.m., I jolted awake, unsure why. Then from downstairs, a sound cut through the silence. A voice. It sounded exactly like my sister's, as if she were already inside the house, not calling for entry. Though groggy and disoriented, I recognized her voice, even if I couldn't quite grasp what she was shouting. My muddled mind assumed she was calling to me, or perhaps arguing with her boyfriend. I stumbled from bed into the absolute darkness of the hall, flicked on the lights, and navigated through my living room. Again, her voice drifted up from below, clearer this time. She was calling my name. I descended the dark stairs, shouting back, "What is it?" I fumbled for the light switch in the downstairs foyer, but my sleep-addled brain couldn't locate it. I was truly, profoundly groggy. I continued down her small hallway toward her kitchen, finally finding the switch and flipping it. The kitchen light flickered on, slowly illuminating her entire downstairs apartment, including her living room. Though it began dim and took a moment to brighten, I saw immediately no one was there. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. A primal fear seized me. I scrambled back up the stairs, feeling like a terrified child, and retreated to my bed where my phone lay. I tried calling her repeatedly, but she didn't answer. I locked myself in my room, a chilling thought taking hold. Had I imagined the whole terrifying ordeal? Eventually, exhaustion claimed me. In the morning, I woke to a text from my sister, asking why I'd called her at 1 a.m. I asked if she'd been home. "No," she replied, "I'm still at my boyfriend's." A cold knot formed in my stomach. I ventured downstairs again, returning to her bedroom to investigate the sound. The floor was bare. Not a single item lay there that could have produced that noise. I try to convince myself I hallucinated everything I heard that night. It's a far less horrifying thought than the alternative. Yet, I've never had a history of hallucinations or sleep disorders. The sheer clarity of her voice and that unsettling sound in her room still sends shivers down my spine. Growing up, I was often left alone. My mom was a single parent for much of my childhood, working grueling overnight shifts as an RN. And my brother was away at college. One particular weekend night, when my mom was working, a girl I was seeing, Molly, came over. We watched a couple of movies, but eventually, her parents' strict rules meant she had to leave. I was left alone, holding down the fort. I continued watching TV in my upstairs bedroom, which overlooks the backyard. Suddenly, a distinct scraping sound broke the quiet. Someone dragging a chair across the deck outside. I got up and peered out the window. Below, on one of the deck chairs, sat a figure. "Molly," I called out, assuming it was her. She'd only left minutes ago. The figure looked up at me. It wasn't Molly. I recoiled instantly, pulling back from a window, desperate to hide. In the dim light, it was a stranger. I frantically texted my closest friends in our group chat, asking if one of them was playing a cruel prank. Everyone who replied denied it, asking what I was talking about. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. It was unmistakably a man, and he had definitely seen me. I scrambled away from the window again, turning off the TV. I curled into a tight ball on my bed, arms wrapped around my knees, enveloped in darkness. I didn't dare turn on my phone screen, fearing the light would draw his attention. I didn't even want to move. The window was open, and I was terrified he'd hear the slightest sound. I needed him to think the room was empty. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Instead of retreating, I tried to summon courage. "What do you want?" I called down, my voice trembling. Then his shoulders began to heave, as if in silent, violent laughter. No sound came at first, just a faint, unsettling whistling. He seemed to be laughing so hard he was gasping for air. "Please, just go away," I pleaded, then stumbled back from the window. I returned to my bed, paralyzed by a strange fear that kept me from calling for help. I left my room and sat at the top of the stairs, straining to hear. A distinct push against the back door. He was trying to get inside. I bolted back to my room, hiding once more. I was only 14. I was at a loss. Then I heard the front door's latch being tampered with, the man attempting to force it open from the outside. Mercifully, he gave up quickly. I swiftly closed my bedroom window and drew the curtains. If our doors hadn't been secured, I could have faced terrible harm. At 14, I was frail and powerless, utterly incapable of defending myself. I didn't leave my room again that night until my mom arrived home around 9. When I recounted the terrifying events, her reaction was to chide me fiercely for not calling for help immediately. In hindsight, it was a grave error in judgment, one of many things I did, or rather didn't do, at a young age that has haunted me for years. That was the story of how I faced a terrifying peril as a young kid home alone, marking possibly the most intense night of my life, a night of pure, unadulterated terror. We were a family of 5. I was 10 years old then, my older brother 14, and my little sister just 5. It was a Friday night, and my brother was out with his friends, engaged in youthful mischief, clearly, because a phone call that shattered our peace came to my parents. All I remember is being in my room, immersed in a Star Wars video game, when I heard my mom let out a sudden piercing wail of distress. A cold dread seized me, and I rushed to see what was wrong. My mom was on the phone with a hospital delivering grim news. My brother had been involved in a severe incident. Obviously, we were all plunged into terrifying uncertainty. His leg had sustained a serious injury, but I don't recall the other details shared over the phone. All I know is my parents frantically prepared to leave, sweeping my little sister from her room. They asked if I could manage the house alone. I said yes, and they hurried out to the car and were gone. My heart ached for my brother, of course, yet a deep reluctance kept me from wanting to witness his suffering at the hospital. I don't think my parents wanted my sister or me to see him in such a state either, but they couldn't leave my 5-year-old sister home without them. It's worth mentioning my brother recovered just fine. His injury is no longer relevant to the story, save for being the reason I was left home alone on a Friday night. Before my dad left, his steady voice tried to calm my mom, reassuring her that our brother would be okay. Seeing my dad like that made me feel a little better. I had a feeling my mom was just overwhelmed with maternal worry, as any mother would be. I continued playing the Star Wars game for a couple more hours. Then I heard the distinct sound of the front door being unlatched. I had my bedroom door closed by this point. It was easily past midnight, well past the hour of slumber, so I turned off the TV and PlayStation and crawled into my bed with my Game Boy. I strained to catch the familiar sounds of my parents' return, perhaps to hear if my brother was with them or just to discern what they were saying. But only an unnerving silence met my ears. After a few minutes of not hearing them even come up the stairs, a cold premonition settled over me. I went to my door and softly nudged it ajar, then crept to the banister that overlooked the living room. The lights were off, but there were 3 towering figures, utterly unfamiliar, standing silently below. A sudden, paralyzing terror locked me in place for a second before I could manage to retreat to my room. closing the door with painstaking care. But the faint click, a whisper of sound, seemed to echo like thunder in the silence, betraying my presence. They had to have heard it. I fumbled for my closet door, opened it quietly, stepped inside, then shut the door. I crammed myself amidst a barricade of boxes and forgotten garments, concealed almost entirely from sight. There was a short period that felt like an eternity of agonizing suspense as I braced myself for the inevitable. The door did open. In that instant, a chilling certainty washed over me. This was the end. I heard heavy footsteps invade my space. I couldn't tell if it was one person or two. The footsteps moved to my bed, and I heard a rustling sound from my covers. Then silence. More footsteps approached the closet, a terrifying pause. Then the closet door creaked open. My heart hammered against my ribs. All I did was remain utterly still, barely daring to breathe. The opening gaped, a portal to horror for what felt like an age. 20 endless seconds of absolute silence, and I didn't stir, didn't dare to glance up. Then the door slowly swung shut. Footsteps receded, then faded from the room entirely. I finally looked up and a horrifying thought struck me. From my cramped sanctuary behind the bags and boxes, I might have been visible to that person. It wasn't until probably an hour later that I heard my parents' frantic return. I ran downstairs to them. The front door stood ominously ajar, a testament to the violation. Several precious items had been stolen from our house. It was a night that just went from bad to worst for our family. My parents had been in such a rush when they left for the hospital that they had apparently neglected to secure the entrance. I was miraculously spared from a far grimmer fate. I often replay that chilling scene, questioning if the figure who peered into my closet truly saw me. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. My mother's affluent friend, Patty, extended an invitation for a trip that she was covering all expenses for. As a sole child, the house became my solitary domain. Our home in Newark, Ohio, nestled in a county with the peculiar name of Licking, bordered dense woods in the backyard, and was on a secluded lane, rarely disturbed by passing vehicles. We had an expansive deck at the rear, offering views into the forest, and a sizable yard. We even had a small, tranquil fish pond and an elevated swimming pool. It was a Thursday evening, I recall, as I'd spent the day discussing weekend plans with friends. The year was 2013, in the heart of July. I was unwinding on the deck, music playing softly, when I thought I caught a voice drifting from the dense woods. I hushed the music, straining to hear, but the sound didn't repeat, so I turned the volume back up. Moments later, the voice came again from the trees. This time I killed the music entirely, listening intently. It was a man's voice, clear now, calling, "Hey, over here." He sounded somewhat distant, yet not truly far. The woods edged our property, perhaps 20 or 30 yards from where I sat. My first thought wasn't that he was calling to me, but perhaps just some kids playing a game. Then the voice echoed once more, "Hey, over here. I'm here to help with any questions or provide information you need. Please go ahead and ask. Please, come help us." And indeed, the sound emanated from the woods right before me. A heavy certainty settled in my gut. This was for me. Reluctantly, I called back, "Who's there?" "We just need help," the voice replied. "We're stuck in the woods." "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice betraying my growing apprehension. "Just please come help, straight in front of you." Driven by a strange mix of fear and obligation, I rose from my chair, descended the back steps onto the grass, and started cautiously toward the tree line. "I'm coming," I called out. "Where are you?" "Right in front of you. I see you." The voice answered instantly. "Wait," I retorted. "Are you alone or with someone?" This time, there was no reply. I froze, halfway to the woods. A profound sense of dread washed over me. This felt wrong. Every instinct screamed at me to retreat. I began backing away, not daring to turn my back on the silent woods, a sudden chilling clarity descending upon me. This whole situation was deeply suspicious. I reached the safety of the deck, and the voice remained silent. If they truly saw me, if this was real, wouldn't they have cried out, "Where are you going?" at the very least? They knew I was onto their deception. Who knew how many people were hidden in there? 3? The idea of being stuck when they could clearly see me made no sense. What, had their shirt snagged on a branch? I hurried inside, securing every door. I settled in the living room for a while, still feeling the lingering effects of my relaxation earlier. I think that's why I'd been so trusting at first, so unnervingly calm. But then I heard the voice again from outside, much closer now, no longer in the woods, but definitely in the backyard. I heard the unmistakable sound of splashing water, from the pool or of a pond, I couldn't tell. I rushed to the window, peering out. At first, I saw nothing. Then the voice called out, "I see you," followed by a chilling laugh. I spotted him. At least one person was visible, his head barely peeking from behind the far side of the pool. It was too dark to make out any features beyond his dark, medium-length hair. I quickly closed the blinds, hoping he'd lose interest if I didn't engage. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. I'm here to listen or talk if you need anything. If you'd like to discuss how you're feeling or anything else on your mind, feel free to share. I sat there for a long time, and it seemed he had truly given up. I still managed a good night's sleep, as my usual routine helped me relax. I often wonder if I would have handled that encounter differently if my mind hadn't been so eased. The experience certainly left me more wary of who might be lurking outside my door. I was 23, still living with my parents, and one afternoon, with them both out, I found myself playing basketball in the front yard. At some point, I glanced up at an upstairs window and saw a woman standing there. Not my mother, not my sister, a complete stranger. As soon as she noticed me looking, she vanished from the frame. A surge of panic propelled me inside. I raced upstairs, checking the lounge, then every single room. Bedrooms, bathroom, every closet. Nothing. I descended to the main floor, sweeping through the living room, kitchen, dining room, another bedroom, and more closets. Still nothing. Finally, I turned to the basement. I barely believed she could be down there. It was a small space with just a couple of couches, a bar, and 2 closets. Nowhere truly to hide. But as I approached the second closet, a profound fear gripped me. This was the last possible spot. I yanked the door open, like tearing off a painful bandage, and immediately lunged inside, pushing myself amongst the coats and hangers. I hoped to surprise her, to gain the advantage. But all I found was fabric and empty hangers. Confusion washed over me. I wasn't going to question my sanity. I had seen that woman, vividly. It wasn't the kind of image one simply conjures. I returned to the middle floor and screamed at the top of my lungs for whoever was in the house to get out. My voice was so loud that our next-door neighbor, concerned, came over to check on me. I explained that I had just seen a woman at an upstairs window watching me play basketball. He came in and helped me search again. When we still found no trace, I was forced to assume she had slipped out through the back door, which I had in fact left unlocked when I went to retrieve the basketball from the yard earlier. My neighbor left, and I secured all the doors, then called my parents to recount the incredible story. They weren't pleased, but they asked me to check if anything had been stolen. I did, and thankfully everything valuable seemed to be in its place. Later that night, I went to bed after one final house check, hoping for peace of mind. Sleep was elusive. My thoughts raced for obvious reasons. Most people can't fathom seeing a stranger inside their own home. But my restlessness, in a strange twist of fate, proved to be my salvation. I was finally beginning to drift into sleep when I heard faint noises from the other side of my bed. A ceiling fan was on, so the room wasn't perfectly silent, which is why I didn't immediately react to the first sound. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. Prepare yourselves for a tale that reveals how even the most enchanting destination can shroud the darkest horrors. That's when I called the authorities. While we waited, the woman shouted angrily, hurling harsh words and ominous warnings at us. Her appearance and agitated state suggested deep distress. When the police arrived, one of the officers immediately recognized her. They had encountered her many times before. Her name, coincidentally, was Karen. It was profoundly satisfying to watch them escort her into the patrol car. I expressed my immense gratitude to my neighbor for his swift assistance. That night, my mind continued to race, but alongside the lingering unease, I felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction, a feeling I can't fully explain.